connected with, you know, the Tavistock and Dar es Salaam, and there's a sexual perversion group in Vienna and one in Colorado. I think that little girl was part of that experiment, you know, who was
John Benet Ramsey?
Yeah, yeah, because I had some...
Well, you know, that raises an interesting point, because here's a high-profile murder that goes nowhere. No investigation, nobody's pinned. It just goes on and on and on.
The parents are involved in that program.
But somebody higher up is protecting them.
Absolutely.
And the same thing that you're describing about the military.
Sure.
If you're in the clique, you can get away with murder.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Murder, literally murder.
As many women do, she would introduce people to one another to help them find friends. She helped both her husband and one of her friends from school meet a man named T. Parker Host. She later decided that Parker Host was connected with organized crime. However, her friend from school married him anyway.
This is his wife, Anne, and I introduced him to her.
Good work.
She's my school friend, you know.
Is he still married to her?
Yeah, I mean, he's loaded. You know, she wants a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Her uncle is one of the guys who went to the moon, Collins.
She mentions that her friend is related to Michael Collins, who went to the moon on Apollo 11. If you believe NASA sent people to the moon, take a look at my science challenge at my website. 6 groups of astronauts were sent to the moon, but not one of them saw stars. NASA claims that stars cannot be seen on the moon because the sun is too bright. A video called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon" shows the portion of the press conference where the astronauts were asked about the stars. Neil Armstrong answers, and afterwards Michael Collins makes a remark that he does not remember seeing any stars. Michael Collins was in the command module that was circling the moon, while the other 2 astronauts were on the surface of the moon.
When you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
Collins wants us to believe that during his entire trip to and from the moon, he never bothered to look out the window. These 3 astronauts just accomplished the most incredible achievement the human race has ever made. But notice how sad, nervous, and worried they look. Why would NASA fake a moon landing? Perhaps, as Kay Griggs says,
I think they're trying to destroy America.
A faked moon landing can destroy morale among scientists and make America look like a nation of idiots. The news reporters also seem to be controlled by these criminals and their pink triangle boyfriends. News reports about child sex and homosexuality among government officials are quickly suppressed. For example, do you remember when Colin Powell discussed the issue of sex slaves?
We're talking about women and girls as young as 6 years old, trafficked into commercial sexual exploitation.
Not many people know about this issue because the television news reporters prefer to talk about Michael Jackson and Terry Schiavo. 100 years ago, Al Capone and other gangsters were manipulating city governments. Today, the criminals are manipulating entire nations. Most people's reaction is to complain about the criminals. However, the criminals are not the problem. As I wrote on page 150 of my book, a nation that has an incompetent government is vulnerable to abuse from both its own citizens and from foreign nations. Complaining about corruption will not make the world better. Instead, we should be discussing the issue of how to provide ourselves with better governments.